Hello everyone, welcome to today's show. My name is Spencer Walsh. Thank you so much for joining us here today. Really appreciate you being with us. Here's what we got for Wednesday, May 30th. Eric Greitens, the Missouri governor and the former rising Republican star, is set to resign today. It made a major scandal. Trump asked Jeff Sessions to retain control of the Russia inquiry after his recusal, to do a soft recusal, as they say. I guess we can talk about that. Also, Roseanne is canceled, and Stacey Abrams didn't play it safe, and we'll meet some more Dem women who are kicking some ass out there. And, that would be pretty cool. So, thank you so much for joining us here today. I really appreciate it, as always. And we got a great show for you today. All right, let's get into it. Eric Greitens, he's the Missouri governor. He will be resigning. He's a decorated Navy SEAL who served in Afghanistan and Iraq. The founder of a veterans charity in Missouri and a Rhodes Scholar. He was chiseled and charismatic. He was also elected governor of Missouri and seen by his fellow Republicans as a potential superstar in the party, as someone with the brains of voting instincts to perhaps rise all the way to the White House. But he was seen as a family man. He was seen as a good guy. He was seen as a strong and very far-right person who would have been great for the Republicans in the future. But it would have been hard to kind of reconcile after Trump. But on Tuesday, Greitens resigned more than 4 months into a scandal involving a sexual relationship with the former hairdresser, and claims his former hairdresser, and claims that he had taken an explicit photograph of her without her permission. He was also accused of by prosecutors of misusing his charity donor list for political purposes. So he was a bad guy. He was pretty corrupt. Turns out he wasn't all chiseled and brave. He was actually very, very corrupt. So there is that downside that a lot of people don't always think about there. But anyway, there is that fun, enjoyable side. So defiant but somber, Greitens, who was voted into office into 2016, insisted that he committed no crimes or any offense worthy of this treatment. He described the illegal harassment of colleagues, friends, and campaign workers. It's clear that the forces that oppose us there are no end in sight. And I mean, it's such the sad and annoying and just disturbing and frankly irritating thing that all these Republicans who are in trouble that they do is they're like, oh no, I mean, it's just my people, they've always been harassed. It's so sad. I mean, Trump does it like worse than everyone else because he's kind of dumb, but I mean, it's just the whole game that they play. Like, this is so corrupt. Everything's out to get me. But it's just almost never true. So that's pretty much the same thing. So this ordeal has been designed to cause an incredible amount of strain on my family. Greitens said, I cannot allow those forces to continue to cause pain and difficulty to the people that I love. All right, we will look at his scandal. The scandal that is affecting him now and is the whole reason, the big deal why we're in this situation today. So, the governor's problems began early this year when a St. Louis television station broadcast an audio recording it obtained from the former husband of a woman who had had an affair with Mr. Greitens in 2015 before he became governor. The woman's former husband had secretly recorded her discussing the sexual encounters and making an explosive accusation that Mr. Greitens had taken an explicit photograph of her without permission and threatened to make the image public if she told anyone about him. So, that seems to be pretty much revenge porn by the former governor. Or by the to-be governor. I mean, he's engaging literally here in revenge porn, which is not very good at all. It's one of the worst things you could possibly do. Like a woman you want to break up with, you hold like possible career opportunities over their head, and yeah, it's just and try to go out of their way to embarrass them and to make their life a living hell when they break up with you or do something you don't want to do, which is it's really gonna it's definitely really awful stuff. So in February, prosecutors then charged Greitens with invasion of privacy, a felony in Missouri in connection with the photograph. The woman who worked as a hairdresser and had cut Greitens' hair had not been publicly identified, but has told officials she did not wish to share her story with law enforcement or the public. She's repeatedly turned down requests for interviews. Subpoenaed to testify under oath before a state legislative committee investigating the governor, the woman said that she went to Greitens' home on his invitation one morning, where he suggested that they work out together. He blindfolded her, taped her hands to pull-up rings, and began kissing her. Then he tore off her shirt, pulled down her pants, and took a picture with his cell phone. She said that's kind of how it all turned out. But in mid-May, with the jury already being picked for the trial that was scheduled to begin in a matter of days, prosecutors suddenly dropped the invasion of privacy case against the governor. They said they had no choice to drop the case because the prosecutor, Kimberly Gardner, was being called as a witness by Mr. Greitens' defense team. So that was a little weird. I mean, seems like it's not right that if you want someone to drop charges against you, all you got to do is call the witness, call the prosecutor as a witness on the witness stand, which is a little weird. A week later, a special St. Louis judge appointed a special prosecutor, Gene Peters Baker, to decide whether to refile the charge. On Tuesday, Baker said the investigation remains open and no deals were made by my office. Legal experts have said the case had other problems all along, not at least that the prosecutors had not come up with the photo that was said to be at the center of the case despite searches of the governor's phone. The governor had also faced a second unrelated felony charge. Last month, Greitens was accused of illegally obtaining a donor list from a charity he founded and using it to raise money for his 2016 campaign. Mr. Gardner, who's the Miss Gardner, who's the circuit attorney in St. Louis, charged him with one count of tampering of computer data. Greitens' lawyer called the charge absurd. Shortly after the governor announced his resignation, Gardner said in a statement that she had reached a fair resolution of the charge against Greitens, and details would be announced on Wednesday. So that's today. We don't know the details yet, though, unfortunately. So you're going to have to keep an eye out for that if you haven't already heard. So yeah, he is out. He's resigning, this guy. So now that we know his charges, we can investigate now a little bit more. The scandal has spread now far beyond the governor, threatening to sink chances of another prominent Missouri Republican. Josh Hawley, the Attorney General, was expected to face a tight Senate race against Senator Claire McCaskill, a Democrat. So, on Tuesday, Hawley applauded Greitens, no surprise here, for doing the quote-unquote right thing. For months, the governor has violently refused to resign, even as Republican-dominated legislative committee investigated him, read aloud, for the record, a lurid and lengthy account of his behavior, and warned that impeachment was possible. So, I mean, this has been some really quite intense stuff. Like, there's been talk of impeachment, there's been threats of impeachment, even from his own party, and it makes sense because he's been accused of some pretty awful things. He's not only is he corrupt, not only has he engaged in like revenge porn, but now he's manipulating donor lists to get information from the 2016 campaign. Like, it seems to be quite the fella here. So for Republicans, the prospect of an end to it all brought a measure of relief. There's not going to be this constant battle going on, dragging people through the mud, said State Rep Kathy Conway, a Republican, who for months had suggested that Greitens resign, but I think that there's still so much healing to do. Greitens' resignation will take effect on Friday, and Lieutenant Governor Michael L. Parson, a Republican from rural southwest Missouri, who previously served as sheriff and state senator, will take over for the rest of Greitens' term, which ends January 2021. All right. Now, we turn our attention to Donald J. Trump. Trump asked Sessions, apparently, to retain control of the Russia inquiry after after his recusal. So that's a little strange. So I'm going to have to quote extensively from this article here today by Michael S. Schmidt and Julie Hirschfield Davis. So here's how they lay out the story here. By the time Attorney General Jeff Sessions arrived at President Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort for dinner one Saturday evening in March 2017, he had been receiving presidential silent treatment for 2 days. Mr. Sessions had flown down to Florida because Trump was refusing to take his calls about a pressing decision on the travel ban. He was refusing to take his calls. He was ignoring him. He was cutting out a key important process about one of his top pieces of legislation, and Donald Trump was that mad that he decided to do that. So when they met, Trump was ready to talk, but not about the travel ban. His grievance was with Mr. Sessions himself. Jeff Sessions was not in the president's good graces and would never really be ever again. The president objected to his decision to recuse himself from the Russia investigation, so we kind of know this already. But Trump, who told aides he needed loyalists overseeing the inquiry, braided Sessions, told him he should reverse his decision, an unusual and potentially inappropriate request. The confrontation, which has been previously not been previously reported, is being investigated by Robert Mueller, and as are the president's public and private attacks on Sessions and efforts to get him to resign. Trump dwelled on the recusal for months, according to confidants and current and former administration officials who described his behavior towards the attorney general. The special counsel's interest demonstrates Sessions' overlooked role as a key witness in the investigation into whether Trump tried to obstruct the inquiry itself. It also suggests the obstruction investigation is broader than it was widely understood to be, encompassing not only the president's interactions with and the firing of James Comey, but also his relationship with Jeff Sessions. So those seem to be the two main components, because there is evidence to suggest that, and I'm sure probably more evidence that maybe we don't even know about, that Trump fired Comey for the purposes of the Russia investigation and to clear his name and to get the heat off him in the potentially damaging Russian investigation. So that seems to be what maybe went on here. And also there is the situation with Jeff Sessions, who he was, again, as we know, we've known this since the winter time. He has been very, very disturbed. And I mean very disturbed about the possibility of Jeff Sessions not leading this Russian investigation was something he was very worried about. And ever since he recused himself, he's really Trump has really held it against him, and that seems to be one of the main reasons why they have such beef today. So there is that, and so Jeff Sessions now turning into a major component of the Trump investigation here. So investigators have pressed current and former White House officials about the Trump's treatment of Sessions and whether they believe the president was trying to impede the Russian investigation by pressuring him. The Attorney General was also interviewed at length by Mueller investigators in January, and of the 4 dozen or so questions Mr. Mueller wants to ask Trump, 8 relate to Mr. Sessions. Among them, what efforts did you try to make to get him to reverse his recusal? So, that seems to be, again, as we know now for sure, a pretty big focus of Robert Mueller, because those questions were, in fact, leaked. So the president's lead lawyer in the case, Rudy Giuliani, said that if Trump agreed to answer the special counsel's questions and an interview is the subject of continuing negotiations, he should not be forward to discuss his private deliberations with senior administration officials. Talking about the Attorney General, Giuliani would set a bad precedent for future presidents. I mean, talking about the Attorney General is very, very important, though, to this case. That's the thing you don't seem to really understand here, because there seems to be a big problem with Giuliani and with